I'd like to call this meeting of the Monticello City Council to order. Please rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and Steve Cagle with Crossroads Church will lead us in prayer. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you so much for the goodness that you pour out on us and for the goodness of our community. We know that comes from you, Father, and peace comes from you, and we are grateful for that. We pray that you will be with the decisions made in this meeting tonight, that you will give wisdom, and that it will benefit all of our community by what is done in here by these men and women who give their time. We thank you for that. We pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Mayor Stoner is absent tonight. May I have a motion to nominate a mayor?
I move that Wendell Brock serve as the mayor pro tem.
Second.
Seconded by Eric. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Chickens. Thank you for your confidence.
Thanks, Wendy.
We in? Okay. Do we need to get a quorum first or?
We need to do the roll call.
Okay. Could do a roll call, please, to see if we have a quorum.
Ms. Vogt?
Here.
Ms. Lively?
Here.
Mr. Carey?
Here.
Mr. Woodham? Mr. Reed? Mr. Burris?
Here.
Kuhn?
Here.
Mr. Broderick?
Here.
Mr. Brock is here, and Mr. Piercy.
Here.
Quorum.
Thank you. Our in-person participation tonight is the opportunity for the public to provide public comment to the presiding officer. Those wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to commencement of the meeting. You must address the council from the seat and table provided. Public comments or comply with ordinance 2014-02 are limited to 5 minutes or less. Do we have someone to speak tonight? No one. Remote participation, the opportunity for the public to provide public comment to the presiding officer. Public comments must comply with 214-02, be limited to 5 minutes or less. At this time, members of the public are able to attend public meetings by web conference. To submit public comment by email, voicemail, and through web conference. Mara, do we have anyone?
We do.
No one tonight. Okay, thank you. We have the consent agenda tonight. It's approval of documents and action items is listed. The claims report for claims 227-24 through 311 of 24. The meeting minutes, these are documents from the council meetings of 226-24. Permit report for February, the fire report, also for February, police report, and the budget report. Do I have a motion to approve those as presented?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Lively?
Yes.
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Piercy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The mayor's report, it's short tonight. I hope he's having a good time in Florida. New business, have a public hearing this evening. This is on the annual appropriation ordinance of 2024-16. Opportunity to provide public comment related to the annual appropriation. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak on the appropriation? Seeing no one, do we need another roll or not?
Is there anyone online remotely?
Do we have anyone online, Mara? I'm sorry.
There are people online, no one has indicated they would like to.
No one's indicated to speak. Okay. Is that good then? We don't need another roll call.
No, we do not. You can close it.
Do we need one to close it?
I'm sorry.
Do we need a roll call to close
You
it?
can close it. The mayor can open and close, correct?
Yeah, we'll close that public meeting on the comment on the appropriation ordinance. We have a presentation from Tim King tonight. Mr. King is our local supervisor of our monies.
There's this too, Wendell.
Presentation on the debt certificates, bonds, and bond ratings.
Very good. Good evening, everyone. Glad to be here. I just passed out the reports, so I'm going to look at these very quickly, but as hopefully you all know, back in November, the council adopted a resolution giving us the authority to go sell your bonds and debt certificates whenever we deem the market to be at the right point. And generally, that's usually after the first of the year. So we did hold the sale, I believe it was the third week of January, and closed it shortly thereafter. So you guys already have the proceeds, and this is basically the first meeting that I could get here to go through it with you. So I just wanted to, I feel like we have really good news, and want to go ahead and review that with you and answer any questions you may have. We use D.A. Davidson as the underwriter. We've always had the best success with them in terms of underwriting bonds and finding buyers. We did go through a process to try and see if the local banks would step up on this one. This was one that's short. Only 3 years for the bonds that you plan to extend levies, and then only 7 years for the debt certificates. But I think I mentioned back in November that this has just been a really tough year for banks to get very interested in bonds. The banking environment's just been very tough. And so the rate quotes that we got back from the local banks, we knew we could do much better than that by going to the public market. So that's what we did. And so we got ratings from Standard & Poor's, and we did not need to buy bond insurance because you're so highly rated, and with a AA rating. I'm going to spend some more time on that. I'm not going to go through that right now because I've got some more information about your AA rating, which is outstanding. For project funds, it looks screwy when you say you only sold $3,790,000 worth of bonds, but you get $4 million for that. And that's because the industry expects you to be selling at 5% coupons, even though the rates are much lower than that. So you generate what's called premium on your issue. So they're paying a higher amount than par to buy the bonds to get their effective rate in the marketplace. But the marketplace just likes, in the secondary market, they like to go, what's a 5 doing today? We can trade a 5 down the road. So everybody likes to have something that just says 5 on it, looks like a generic commodity. And that's how we get it into the marketplace. So you did, in fact, get a full $4 million worth of project funds out of the debt certificates, and just shy of $750,000, which was the maximum limit calculation that we could get for the general obligation bonds that'll be on the levy. The Series A, the debt certificates, 3.68% over 8 years. The Series B, 4.65% over 3 years, which at first blush, you're going, what in the heck is we doing higher interest rates for a shorter period of time? And the primary driver of that is we are in this weird environment where we have an inverted yield curve. 1-year treasuries are at higher rates than 10-year treasuries. It's super strange. That happens very rarely. Usually that only happens when a recession is on the way. We've had an inverted yield curve environment for over a year now. And so it's just one of those weird phenomena that it actually shorter terms are at higher rates than longer terms. In combination with that, the expense load of 3.25% on each of those, when you're spreading 3.25% expenses over only 3 years versus 8 years, there's that also ticks your interest rate, your effective interest rate up just a little bit on the 3-year issue. So that's the explanation. Looks screwy, but the reality is it's still only out there for 3 years on the Series B, so you're still paying a lot less interest when you pay it. It just looks like it's a little bit higher rate. So we have 7 years at your desired debt service. And based on what we were guesstimating back when we talked in November and what the final results are, the total payments for the debt certificates are over $300,000 less than what we showed you back then. And you'll see that's because interest rates came down nicely. We were still in the 4s, thinking in the 4s instead of that 3.68. And back in November. So obviously got a very good result in our timing of when we went to market. And then the Series B, those 3 years are right at the planned levy amounts that we had shown you back in November. Everything's non-callable because it's a public offering, so that's the only slight negative. We can't touch it early. It will be held until maturity. And then again, the expense load there of 3.25% for a public offering, that's what it is. If we'd been a private placement, it would have been 2-ish. But it more than pays those fees to do a public offering by the substantially lower rates. When we went locally, and granted local was a little earlier before the rates dropped, but the best bid we had was like 5.5%. instead of the 3.68 from local banks. Rates did come down almost a full percent, but still it was a much better decision to go ahead and do it as a public offering. Second page, the only thing on this page is just a quick snapshot today of the interest rates. The graph in the middle is all I'm highlighting here. I went back to January 1 of last year, so you can see kind of how the year went. But when we were talking back in October, you can see that was at the very, very highest point when we first started looking at this. And we were thinking that your effective rate might be all the way at 5 or in the low 5s instead of the 3.68. So it was nice to be able to see that big drawdown. And we essentially hit within a week of the bottom there in the middle of January. It had bounced up maybe 0.1% off that bottom when we priced the third week of January. So we were real pleased with that. Then the next page just shows the actual payments when we're all said and done. The two sets on the left are your levy side, showing the last payment on the pool bonds that was paid at the end of last year. And now the 3 levies in the orange box there, that's what's going to be on the levy for the next 3 years. We stepped it up each year, estimating that your assessed valuation will increase by roughly that percent, so that hopefully the rate remains pretty constant with where the last payment of the pool bonds was. Then on the right, I still show that the water tower and pool refunding bonds we did in 2020, the remainder of that is still out there. And then the new issue that we approved, or that we did in January, is the green set for the park improvements at roughly 430-some thousand a year for 4 years, then a couple of larger payments of $1.2 million, almost $1.3 million. And then that final year at just shy of 400,000, which we were thinking was going to be closer to 700,000. Back in December. And the plan, I believe, for that is to be paid back with TIF revenues. So that was structured that way to exactly match where your administration wanted the payments to be out of the future TIF revenue. Any questions about that? We talk rating. Yes.
Yeah. How hard did you guys push the local bank to negotiate rates?
To be honest, my expectation was that there probably wasn't going to be a lot of wiggle room for the banks or a lot of interest.
In regards to
one bank bid, one bank did not bid, and one bank said, we're not usually buying bonds. We want to help the city, and we know where rates are at. If you can't get this sold for any reason, we'll step up and take it, and we'll help it, and we'll just take a loss. But they didn't want them, and we all knew that you would get a very good rating, and we would have no trouble in the public market getting the best rates available, so that wasn't going to be an issue of not being marketable, kind of a thing.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Okay. Sorry.
Good question. No, very good question. Anybody else? We'd certainly like to keep it local, and that's 99% of what we've done. It's just this last year that's been, once those banks started melting down last spring out on the West Coast, banks have been wanting to keep liquidity and have not been wanting to look at investments. They're just scared, and there's still a lot of fear within the banking environment. Okay, so let's talk about your rating briefly. The city, technically it wasn't called an upgrade because by the time we got the rating, your last payment in December 1 had been made already. So your old rating was no longer in place, but otherwise you would have been upgraded. So the first time the city got a rating was back in 2008 when we did the pool bond issue. And the city was rated A+ at that time, which is really good. We were very happy to get an A+ back at that time. And then I'm trying to think if anybody was on the council in 2014. Wendell, you're probably the only one.
He's probably.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor was here, and he's not here tonight. So that's what I was thinking was that Wendell was there. So anyway, back in 2014, every so often Standard & Poor's, usually at least once every 4 years, they review any outstanding rating and send out a questionnaire, ask for more information to see if it needs to be upgraded, downgraded, or remain the same. And in 2014, the city was upgraded to AA-, which was really, really good. Very, very few downstate municipal governments that get in the AA range or higher. And so that was something he wanted me to come and tell the council about and toot the horn kind of thing. And so we did. And it was, great news. Well, this time, obviously the last few years of really good revenues and great fund balances, have contributed to the point where the city is now rated a straight AA, even one notch higher, which frankly is the only AA that Kings Financial works with. We work with lots of downstate municipals, and that's nobody else. It's very, very few outside of Cook and the Collier counties or Metro East that even get thought about in that strata. And usually the thing that knocks it out is the income per capita of the residents kind of thing. And that's something that Monticello, we enjoy at slightly higher than average of most versus most of the surrounding communities. Anyway, so I put a page together here just highlighting the criteria, the rating criteria, and then what the averages are of these 7 per capita expendable income, market value, that's EAV per capita, your general fund balance, how many days you have to cover your expenses, that kind of thing, all these categories. And then I wrote to the side there where the city falls in. And you can see that first one, 105, is right in that AA range. And I think that's the one that really threw it over because your 80 million of EAV or 80,000 of EAV per capita was actually closer to AA minus than the AA kind of, partway in the middle there. But anyway, just food for thought, all of those rankings, how you came in and fit in, and it does fit in very nicely in that kind of in between AA minus to getting into the AA in every one of those categories, and they bumped you all the way to that AA. Then the graph at the bottom shows all of the cities and villages in the state of Illinois that currently have a rating with Standard & Poor's, 227 in total in those top 3 categories, AAA, AA plus, and AA. You can see there's 87 out of those 227, so Monticello is in the top 38% with Standard & Poor's. I should say that's with Standard & Poor's because I know that when we look at the next page then, to flesh that out a little bit, I just went through the entire list and typed up for you every city and village that I think is outside of Cook and the Collier counties in the state of Illinois and their rating, and then highlighted the ones that were AA or higher. And you can see there's only 7. Monticello is pretty much, I'm thinking the smallest one, maybe Nashville might be similar size to Monticello kind of thing, but the vast majority of those are bigger than Monticello. I missed Springfield. Highlight that. I knew there was Springfield. Obviously, is a lot bigger. They're straight AA. Swansea and O'Fallon. O'Fallon was the only AA plus. Both of those are Metro East, right across the river from St. Louis and next to Belleville. You got Normal in there. Nashville, Manuka, and Galena kind of stand out along with Monticello in my mind. But other than that, you can go through this list and see that we compare very, very favorably with cities and villages of all sizes. You also see there's very, very few that have triple Bs or double B plus, and the graph on the page before shows hardly any of those B categories. And the reason for that is when you go through the ratings with Standard & Poor's, if you know what you're doing, you first tell them that you want a confidential rating. The idea being that if it's going to be crappy, then you don't have to take it and publish it. Versus if you ask for a public rating up front, they'll just publish it and there's nothing you can do about it. So the first time anybody goes through it, they'll always ask for confidential. And if they're not going to get a good rating that helps them, they'll tell them to blow it off and they'll just buy bond insurance and forget getting a rating. So there's not very many rated in those categories just because they don't take the rating. There would be lots more that could be in those categories if they wanted to. And of course, this is only when you need to get a rating, you're selling debt. There's lots and lots of very, very small municipal entities that don't ever bother to do any borrowing, so they're not even attempting to go through the rating process. So the only other one I would highlight that isn't on here, because I knew when I first started 20 years ago trying to get the city of Champaign business that they're very proud of their AAA rating. I'm like, it's not here. Where is it? Well, they get rated by Moody's and Fitch, not Standard & Poor's. So, and they still are very proud of their AAA with Moody's. But you're still going to be in very rare air, all I'm saying. I'm sure there's probably a handful of Moody's that are good as well, perhaps downstate, but being top 8 out of all of the downstate here of a huge number that's out here is just, you guys are in very rare air, and it should be very proud of the accomplishments, achievements financially that you guys have been able to shepherd, and your administration as well. So, any questions? You've got the report. I'm not going to look at this at all, but just take that home and feel free to read it and see all the detail, all the good things that Standard & Poor's wanted to say about you.
Questions from anyone? We all understand that as well as I do. We're in great shape.
There you go.
Tim, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
King Financial continues to help the city of Monticello every way possible.
Yes.
It's in our good situation. All right, the other items tonight, we're going to start off with our ordinances present tonight. The first one is ordinance 2024-16 is for the appropriation for the fiscal year commencing January 1st of 2024, ending December 31st, 2024 for the city of Monticello. Terry, you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. The appropriation ordinance, in short, for us to spend money based upon the budget and all those discussions and budget meetings leading up to the approval of the FY24 budget at the first meeting last December. There are things required for adoption of the appropriation ordinance. One, we had the public hearing this evening. Two, you had to place the notice in a local newspaper. That was published February 21st in the Pike County Journal Republican as required. As we have done since 2016, the appropriation ordinance is slightly inflated over the actual FY 2024 budget. And we do this to allow for unforeseen revenues and or expenditures. Maura does a great job every year putting this together. So thank you again, Maura. It is recommended the City Council adopt the FY 2024 annual appropriation ordinance this evening.
Thank you. Questions, discussion, comments?
Any highlights we should be aware of here?
Nothing comes to mind. It's just straight from the budget.
And we've all discussed that, so.
The budget?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Starting last, I don't know, October,
It
November.
was October. Yeah.
Comments? I have a motion to accept ordinance 2024-16 as given.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
thank you. Roll call.
Ms. Boat,
Yes.
Ms. Lively,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Coon,
Yes.
Mr. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes,
Mr. Piercy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
thank you. We have a series of ordinances to present tonight that these involve the new municipal code. Chief Bross is going to speak on all these since they are changes that concern his department, many of them. Ordinance 2024-17. This amends Chapter 10 of Title 1 of the Municipal Code, the City of Monticello. Chief, have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Occasionally, we have to issue citations. Usually, we give people that are issued citation tickets a certain amount of time to pay the ticket. Usually, it's a minimum of 10 days. I understand a lot of people don't have $100, $200, $400, $500 to pay. So sometimes we extend that limitation out on extenuating circumstances. What we had in section or chapter 10, section 99 for general penalties would be if we issued a citation, then they had up until 2 days of a court date that we already had to pay our attorney for and a filing fee to get that done. They had 2 days before that court date to pay us, and then we could dismiss the court date. The problem that we had would be we've already spent the money on an attorney. We've already spent we get charged the filing fee. And then for someone to come up 2 days before and try to pay their fine, more times than not, that fine did not cover the attorney fees, the filing fee, or anything else. And this is after a lot of times we will send letters out saying, hey, you were issued a $100 citation, you need to pay it. This isn't out of nowhere. It's not a surprise. So this is just removing that. So pretty much if somebody calls us, we will bend over backwards and try to work with them. We want voluntary compliance. We don't like, hand to God kind of things on ordinances. But this is just to try to save the city some money so we don't waste time filing things in court just to have it dismissed and still lose money on the fact.
Questions or comments? I have a motion to approve ordinance 2024-17 is presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
Ms. Boat,
Yes.
Ms. Lively,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes.
Mr. Piercy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next one is ordinance 2024-18. This amends Title 7, Chapter 72 of the City of Monticello Code of Ordinances. Chief, it's to you also.
Thank you. Same thing. This is just cleaning up more or less the parking section of our ordinances. 7211 for violations. We have gotten rid of the up safety program that used to be such a headache about a year ago, if anyone remembers that on the board. So pretty much this is just removing the online payment option and the drop box, because what we found out is people put in the wrong amount. We have to send letters to them saying, hey, that was a $30 ticket, not a $7.50 ticket. It just creates a few headaches for us. So that's just removing that section of 7211. 7212 is pretty much null and void. Illinois passed the License to Work Act back in 2020. You are no longer allowed to ask the Secretary of State to suspend driver's licenses for those that do not pay parking tickets. So that is just removing that entire section because it's against state law. 7217, parking a vehicle with no registration. It adds a violation for a vehicle parked on a city lot, roadway, parking spot that does not have registration on it. This was not in our ordinance. This is just adding that section. We are also adding with 7218, parking of equipment and 2-hour limitation parking spaces and lots. We had this about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. We had a man lift that was parked on the corner, not moving, not being used, leaking hydraulic fluid. Under our old ordinance, we would have had to do a 10-day abatement notice. So for 10 days, that thing is leaking on the road, using up 2 parking spots. We would obviously try to get a hold of the owner or the operator and say, hey, here's the deal. We're having a problem. You need to move this. But what we found out last time was I called the phone number that was on the piece of equipment. They sold that 10 years ago and they had no idea who the owner was. So luckily we're able to get a hold of the person that was working there and they moved it. I believe it was last Friday afternoon. And then 7299, the penalties. This is updating some of the penalties. Time limit parking, we would no longer have a tiered section. Right now it's first offense is $7.50, second offense is $20, and third offense within a year is $30. We're making it straight across the board at $10 a piece. The reason for $10 and not anything more or less, if it's anything less, people tend just not to care. Anything more, and we're getting into, is that really how we want it? We want people to comply with the 2-hour parking. We don't want to rake them over the coals. $10 is lunch. If you go to Dairy Queen and you get a $7 or $8 meal, that's lunch. So do you want to give the city of Monticello $10 or would you rather eat lunch? And then we went ahead and updated the penalties for 7216 and 7217, which deal with registration. No longer is it going to be $100. It would be a fine of $50 because, again, all we want to do is get compliance. We don't want to rake somebody over for $100 and then make them pay $171 to the state of Illinois. But the caveat to that is if the owner can prove that they had valid registration at the time the ticket was issued, they just forgot the sticker, forgot the tag, whatever the case may be, it goes down to $10. And then we aren't, raking them over the coals over and over again. We just want them to comply. And then obviously, under H, all tickets written under Chapter 72 will double if not paid within 10 calendar days. That's pretty much how we do most of our citations. So that is what we have under Chapter 72.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments concerning that?
I have a quick question. Are we doing anything, for people that live downtown, about the renovations taking place in the big dumpster? Somebody sent an email about having to park further away, and they're to a point where they would like to just park, and if they get a ticket, they get a ticket. So if they're a resident downtown, is there a grace period those people are given for parking?
For residents there,
Yeah.
Given that they're away from their space.
I don't think there are designated spaces for residents.
no, it's all 2-hour parking, and then no parking on Mondays and Fridays from 2 to 5.
Okay.
So they would be required to park in the lots afforded to them. I believe that's on Livingston.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions? Tom, you're good with that?
good, yeah.
Anybody else? Have a motion to approve 2024-18 as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Please.
Ms. Vogt,
Yes.
Ms. Lively,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes,
Mr. Piercy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
thank you. The next one is 2024-19, amends Title 7, Chapter 75, the City of Monticello Code of Ordinances. Chief?
Thank you again. Under 7504, we are tasked with towing certain vehicles, whether that be used in the commission of a crime or a violation of our ordinances. Right now, our impound fee is $30 with a daily impound storage fee of $5. When people break the law in our town, they're really excited that they only have to pay the tow bill because our impound fee and storage are so low. I tried to find a happy medium with this. In Atwood, we enacted a similar ordinance where the impound fee was $500. We took that from Rantoul. Rantoul took that from Paxton. Paxton probably took that from a suburb up north. Take that at what you want. Again, occasionally we tow nice cars, but really we're not towing Lexuses, Mercedes, or BMWs. These are just regular vehicles. So we're asking that the impound fee be $200 with a daily storage fee of $25 per day, which is about middle of the road. It's way better than the $5 we have, but not as bad as I think Reynolds Towing is $65. So this is pretty much, we don't want to entice people to drive on a suspended, revoked license, DUI, anything like that. We need to make sure that we're trying to recoup some of our costs on these crimes.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, motion to approve 2024-19 is presented.
Motion.
Second, please. Motion and a second.
Sir, Ms. Vogt,
Yes.
Ms. Lively,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes,
Mr. Piercy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
thank you. And finally, on the ordinances 2024-20, this amends Title 9 of Chapter 93 of the City of Monticello Code of Ordinances. Chief?
Thank you. Last one, I promise. Under section 9331S, it is a very broad definition of a nuisance. It pretty much says any other actions, conduct, omissions, conditions, or things defined or specified in this code or by state law as nuisance or public nuisances. pretty much, we call this across the street. I don't like it, so it's a nuisance law. Technically, that could be somebody mowing their lawn, that could be kids playing, and if somebody calls us and say, you know what, we have, 9331S, I don't like it, it's a nuisance. We actually had an off-duty police officer call this in because they were building a house in Sage Meadows, and he complained that they were listening to music at 8 a.m. It does kind of run into maybe constitutional grounds if we have people just say, well, I don't like a certain kind of music that's being played in the backyard. As long as it's not loud, horrible at 2 a.m., there's nothing wrong with it. So my suggestion would be to just take that completely out. We already have a ton of ordinances that cover most of everything that we have. Also, we would amend 9399, which is the penalties for some offenses. Updating the fine structure will allow for fines from $100 to $750. That's what it is now. I'm not exactly sure why we did it. I think 1 to 8, 9 to 15, whatever that was. But this just streamlines everything. Any ordinance citation we have is a simple $100 to $750.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Yeah, nuisances, that's a broad range. So, I mean, is it also like someone that has their yard that's not kept?
So that falls under another section. You have to have grass and weeds trimmed to 8 inches or lower.
And do we actually take care of that?
So pretty much we have a door knocker. So keep in mind, if you take things to court, judges, they don't, again, nobody wants hand to God things. So you need to show like, listen, we tried to work with them and they have chosen not to mow. So we have what we call a door knocker, door hanger. We'll put that on their door. Hey, your grass is 12 inches tall, please mow it. Over a weekend, we'll take a look at it. And if they don't, then they get the 10-day abatement notice. You will clean up your property or the city will do it for you. And then we can go through the citation. If they choose not to pay it, then we go through the motions there.
So that will be included with this?
That is already in there.
Okay.
I'd have to look, but it is already in there.
Okay.
For grass height.
Okay.
About barking dogs. Is that,
Barking dogs is under an animal ordinance that's,
because it seems like that one was really vague. As opposed to putting in like a time on it or something like that.
I think it just says continuous barking. And that's where everyone has a phone now. If they show us, a dog's going to bark. If they stop
Right.
after 20 seconds, fine. They go for 3 minutes straight, that's a little much.
Right.
So that's what, and again, going there for the first time, knocking on the door, excuse me, could you tell Fido to knock it off, bring him inside? That's one thing. Going there 3 times a night, you're getting a ticket for that.
Okay.
We don't have a specific time, but that is, it's just a.
No, but that's where we go off of, people's honesty and say, listen, it's been, barking at, 7 p.m. to 7:30 nonstop. Here's the video,
Yeah.
And that's what we tell people a lot of times. If you have a video of it, we can work with that. If you just call anonymously and say, hey, 101 Main Street has a dog out back and we drive by, we don't hear a dog, that's all we can go off of.
Right.
I don't know if I'd want to put in what's too long? Is a minute too long? Is 10 minutes too long?
Right.
What if there's a break?
You don't want to tie your hands.
No, no. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Motion to approve 2024-20 is presented.
So moved.
Second.
The motion and the second.
Ms. Vogt,
Yes.
Ms. Lively,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes.
Mr. Piercy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to an update on Freedom Park. Terry, this is to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Brock. Freedom Park is going to take a little bit longer than the next item, Robert C. Burke Memorial Park. There have been a lot of activities going on in regards to Freedom Park. And I wanted to give the council, and they're still going on, so I wanted to give the council an update because there's kind of a deadline approaching at the end of this month, and we'll get into that. So a few things. Last December, we engaged with a conservator to go to Bethel, Connecticut, where the sculpture is being housed in the storage warehouse, and to give us a condition survey report of what we're entertaining purchasing. So she went out there, and at the very end of December, she gave us a report that had indicated that the material of the sculpture may not in its entirety be cement plaster. She found it's a simple, well, she says it's a simple acid test. So she could put acid on areas of this sculpture, and some areas indicated it was plaster of Paris. So plaster of Paris does not do very well in an outdoor climate. This is an outdoor park. So she made, and she didn't test the entire sculpture, but some of it, and we believe the original was cement plaster, but when during the years, the repair work was probably plaster of Paris. And then it's been painted over, but obviously she recommends it actually being housed, placed indoors, not outdoors. So she also provided a couple of quick down and dirty numbers, what the conservation work, once this sculpture would to be placed on site, what the conservation efforts would entail cost-wise for inside or outside placement. Inside, she ballparked it at $90,000. You know, as it's transported over here, there might be a small crack that shows up, you know, on the inside of an elbow of the statue. That stuff happens with this monument. So $90,000 of work would probably be needed if it was going to be inside. If it was going to be outside, that would probably be more like $215,000 to try to protect it from the elements, right? The snow and ice and wind and rain, all that. So that news we got at the tail end of December last year. We also, the design engineers also did the soil borings to identify the subsurface conditions of the site. That's normally done on, you name it, building, new building construction, subdivision work, that you usually do those soil borings. The soil borings revealed that, and we knew this ahead of time, but the soil borings were 30, 40 feet deep in some locations, and they revealed that there was a large amount of fill material located, what I'd say, on the southern portion of the site, if you will. Market Street would be the north. So towards the south, over the years, and I don't know when it was done, 90s maybe, I don't know. But fill material was brought in and filled that site. As you get closer to Market Street, they did not encounter that amount of fill. So the geotechnical engineers highly recommended relocating the monument, the sculpture, closer to Market Street. Avoid the fill area, get it closer to Market Street. I think the sculpture was, I think it by itself weighs 5 tons. Plus it's going to be on a concrete plinth. So there's going to be a lot of weight here. And obviously we don't need this thing to settle and crack. But the road, I don't know if you remember the master plan, but the road, the entrance road to the site kind of swept up towards Market, the statue behind it towards the tree line. Now that's kind of flipped. Statue towards the road and then the serpentine roadway kind of going behind it towards that tree line. So that entailed a redesign of the master plan. So the project engineers have been working on doing just that, redesigning the roadway closer to the south and situating this sculpture closer to Market Street. I also asked the design engineers, what can you design as far as a enclosure to protect this piece from obviously the elements, but as we kind of started talking about it even more, there would be protection from the potential vandalism if it was in an enclosure. So we really started dialing into some sort of a glass enclosure with a roof. I actually, I went out to the middle school and took a picture of the big glass entranceway, which was kind of, my thought. That's kind of what it would look like. So they've provided, I don't know, 10 or 12 different designs for an enclosure. I asked for three of the designs to give me a cost estimate and a very rough cost estimate. It was, all three were in the neighborhood of 1.8 to 2.4 million for the enclosure itself. I asked them to go back to the drawing board and sharpen their pencils and come up with something else. And I have not received that yet. I got a phone call this afternoon that I should receive that yet this week. A revised design and cost estimate for that. Once we move the centerpiece towards Market Street, if you're familiar with the site, there's 2 billboards. That one is fairly short by Iron Horse Place to the east, and then there's one tall one to the west by State Bank of Mint, I think. I haven't dug into the files for Adams billboards, but they usually are created to occupy a piece of land with a permanent easement. And there's usually visibility restrictions. So when we get the final design, how tall is this enclosure going to be? Is it going to block the shorter billboard? Perhaps it might, so we have to kind of investigate that a little bit. One of the other design options we talked about, if we were not interested in pursuing that statue, was, a large, tall interstate American flag. You've seen them in your travels, I'm sure. My fear is if we do that, now are we having visibility issues with the tall billboard to the west? So those things are still yet to be kind of determined. I reached out to the company that Mariano Brothers, that's the storage facility. They store, move, and set the pieces of art like this. I am waiting on a quote from them of what it would cost to transport and set this statue on this site. I was supposed to get something last week. It just didn't come yet. So the deadline I mentioned a little bit ago, staff has been working with the owner of this monument for nearing 4 years now, which in our world, I don't think that's very long, but as a private art owner, that's extremely long time. So he has asked and requested the city provide a letter of intent with an offer to purchase. His asking price was, a little bit over $1 million. We have some additional costs here, so we will have to decide what an offer would look like. And he would like that by the end of March. I've had our attorneys draft up the letter of intent, and I'll present that to you. Obviously, it is not a binding contract to buy that. It's just a letter of intent that officially, this is what we're wanting to do. This is our offer. He's drafted it in a way that we're not obligated in any fashion. So, and then real quick, and then I'll take all the questions you want. The construction schedule, with all of this being said and done, it was supposed to go out to bid in September. I don't know if that'll happen now, because there's still some things that have to be worked out. But hopefully I have everything. I need to have everything in order and present it to this body at the next meeting in March. So that's all I have on the Freedom Park. You have any questions?
You want to start?
Questions or comments?
Can you refresh my memory?
Go ahead.
The idea of Freedom Park was initiated because of the potential of purchasing the statue. Is that correct?
Yeah, Freedom Park, that initiated it was that sculpture and its ties with Les Gadberry.
Right. And I mean, I feel like it's safe to say the additional cost for repairing the statue and then needing, I agree with the enclosure. It just would make more sense than to try to upkeep the statue, but those are costs that we weren't anticipating. So I appreciate all the work you've done on this. I'm in a parallel situation waiting for people to get pricing and it just not coming when you need it. And that's frustrating, but hopefully I doubt the owner will come down on what he would like to get for the statue. So have to.
Eric?
In 2013, there was you can, Google's a great thing. In 2013, he tried to auction it off and 3 bidders stopped bidding at $950,000 and the minimum was not met yet.
Okay. So he's not going to let it go. My biggest thing about that, the amount that you just discussed is astronomical. But it is an entrance to this town. That's, because, if you look at everywhere you come into this town, it's nothing's nice. So it would be pretty to have something like that. But it's just, The amount, $1.8 million to do an enclosure, I,
On a statue that we got to do at least $90,000 worth of work on.
Yep.
After we buy it for nearly $1 million.
correct.
Did we put a price when we did the opening bid for, or not the opening bid, the rough estimate for what the park was going to cost? Was the statue price in that or not?
I think I think it was.
Okay. So then what we're looking at is a couple million between fixing it up and closing it.
Yeah.
$200,000 to make it outdoor.
And then we have to think about yearly cost of just maintaining.
Is there any idea of the reoccurring costs, how they would compare if we're maintaining a sculpture outside versus maintaining a building that it's residing in? Is that something we can request the project team gives us a side-by-side of what those costs could be?
The maintenance of the enclosure,
Right.
I can ask them for something. I don't know what the annual maintenance cost for, I don't like your house. What's,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that disrespectful. I don't know.
I'm just curious how it compares to what work might be required to do to the statue that's while it's outside. Is that the same as maintaining your house, or is that more?
I would say, me personally, I wouldn't put this thing, I would not put it in anything. It would have to be in an enclosure. Just due to plaster of Paris. I mean, the wind and rain and snow and ice and melt and.
It would kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be, maybe you're spending $90,000 a year, every year.
Yeah, that's something I'm completely unfamiliar with, so that's why I was
Yeah.
curious if we could request that to see what.
Now, this may seem stupid, but is there access, are people going to go into this building, or is it just going to be an enclosure? And that, okay, I like that.
No, we tried to make the footprint as, the perimeter as small as possible, but with that flag, the statue from base to the top of the flag is roughly 25 feet. It was supposed to be on like a 6-foot plinth, to get it elevated a little bit where, it was out of arm's reach and.
But if it's enclosed, will it need a 6-foot plinth?
No, so that's part of the redesign. Okay, bring it down to ground level. So you're trying to value engineer this project now, which is a good thing. So you bring it, it sets at grade. It's in a enclosure, but one, the middle, it's got to be 30-foot tall, 50-foot tall enclosure.
Right.
Whatever that looks like.
Well, then you're right on regards to the billboards around it.
Right.
I mean, like, how much would it cost even to buy that land to get those knocked out? I mean, how much, no, hold on. How much value do they actually bring to the town?
Those won't be for sale. No. I mean, they're on our property. The small one's on our property, but it's wrapped up in a permanent easement.
Okay. Well, there goes that.
Any other comments?
No.
That's a lot. I mean, I
The
threw a
only-
lot at you tonight.
The only comment I will make, and you've all been around, it becomes a convenient nuisance. You put a glass enclosure along the highway, drive around and look at the rural road signs. They're full of bullet holes. how easy would it be to drive by in a car and pull a bullet through the front of a glass enclosure and drive off? Nobody will ever see you. There's nobody around to watch it or nothing. By the time somebody realizes they've damaged a $2 million
Oh, that's good.
enclosure.
We got
The point, to the point,
this flock system out there.
and Chief knows. I mean, like I say, drive around and look at the rural stop signs and road signs in the country. They're full of holes. People do that stuff.
I bet.
And they do it just for kicks and grins. No reason. They're not vindictive. They just do it, you know?
Why would we waste that much money
And
on something like that to happen?
situation, it's kind of like, it's a wonderful idea as a veteran and as someone that supports it, wonderful idea. But as he's presented here tonight, it's kind of like somebody saying, let's go build some ball diamonds. And then look what it turns into.
Mhm.
It becomes, first it's a couple $100,000, then it's $500,000, then it's 2 million, then it's 2 million plus maintenance, then it's da, 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 and it just continues to grow. So not 86 in the whole thing. I'm not, downplaying it, but you're looking at something that I think could very easily become having to spend thousands of dollars repairing what some carload of kids did one night just driving around, So, and that's my only point. It's a lot to look at. As Terry's pointed out here tonight, that this has become a growing thing. Every corner we turn, it's added money, not just time,
Right.
money, significant money. So something to consider.
That's why the engineers are good. I wasn't going to just run with an additional, hey, I need an additional $2 million.
Oh, no, I'm
So
not saying that at all.
they've been asked to,
But
need to come up with a better plan.
yeah, I think it's something we all need to look at before we would say yes, because I think we need to look beyond the fact that it'll be beautiful when it's initially built. But I think the maintenance and the potential for damage
Yes.
overcome what we're looking at. So, and that's all I got to say about it.
And I just
Okay,
wanna-
anybody else?
I
I'm
just
sorry,
wanna
go ahead. Matt.
reiterate, because I know Terry's going to work on this. We will have more information, but just please contact him between now and the next meeting with questions.
Yes.
That's just, don't wait until the meeting to soak it all in. So don't worry, I already have it written down. Check with Terry on.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't ever hesitate. You think of some question on whenever, I'm always available.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, he's given us somewhat of a short deadline there, wanting to know by the end of March. And I don't think we'd be out of line just telling him we can't come up with it that quickly. We can't give you,
Well, he asked for that before.
yeah,
He didn't just ask for that recently.
can't make that,
I'm just trying to get some I's dotted and T's crossed
sure.
ahead of the deadline. So I apologize, I didn't bring it sooner. But I still have pending things that I haven't got resolved yet.
And this amount of money, I mean, that can go to other things that actually need to be addressed compared to a park. No offense. I mean, just that one, I mean, we do have that allocated in certain ways, but not that much money to where we can actually fix other things. That's where I sit.
Anything else?
Make any
Terry, on Burke Park then?
Burke Park, it is not anywhere near what we just talked about. Actually, staff, that's coming along a lot better. Staff is meeting with relation of private first class Burke later this week to come up with, to get her thoughts and ideas on that centerpiece that's in that master plan that honors and remembers PFC Burke in a little bit better way than, the old wooden sign that's there now. If you've ever been you guys are aware what's in the courthouse, and you can look up Robert C. Burke and the Medal of Honor, and it has his accolades of what he did in the Vietnam War. A couple of different sites have similar write-ups. So maybe she's got a picture, of the young Marine, whatever we can find out from her, get her input into the Robert C. Burke Memorial Park. We would like to do that. The construction schedule, it was the same timeline as Freedom Park, and we're hoping that can still go to bid in September. That is a great blessing that the pool season ends mid-October, so we don't have to deal with that during the Family Aquatic Center open season, because that will look like a grenade or a bomb went off in that area. If you witnessed any construction projects, just wait till the end. It'll be okay. So that's it on the Robert C. Burke Memorial Park.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions, comments? Okay, we'll go with the alderman's reports. Mike, I'll just start with you.
Yeah, I want to say thanks to the city for, we own the Seibel House, and we had a pipe burst during that very cold stretch, and nobody was in there for, I don't know, three weeks, and we got a call from the city. It's like, hey, we've got there's a lot more water in the meter. You should go check it out. And so it was pretty ugly there. And I called Terry, and we had somebody come out and shut off the water there. So appreciate just the extra effort. It could have been a lot worse.
Okay, anything, Eric?
Oh, me? So I do have two. Well, I'll speak to Rob about the other one. But 629 Washington. I know we've discussed this before. The apron. I've been texted again in regards to people tripping and falling, and it's not ADA and all that other stuff. It is bad. So I walked it yesterday, and it is actually in bad shape. So we need to go ahead and address that somehow.
Where is this at, Eric?
629 East Washington. It's on the strip on Ridge Road, if you want to say. 629 East Washington. It's their apron to their drive. And it's been plastered a couple this times and then this times. So the sidewalk itself it's a complete trip hazard. I mean, it's bad. So
Look at it.
okay. The other one I'll do with later.
Tom?
Nope.
Anything? Right?
Who maintains the church signs as you come into town?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Maybe. There's one that's just like, it's not our churches. It's another church that's just like, it's fallen down. The one screw holding the bottom, but.
Do you know which
Church, it's Washington.
here?
Yeah.
Washington?
Oh, the one that does Main Street takes care of those.
Mm-hmm.
Shelley.
Shelley Crawford.
Site Crawford.
She normally does the boards.
I don't know.
If it gets bad enough, I'll just get a screw in my screw.
Yeah.
Stop on the side of the road.
I think you might.
Nothing for you?
Nothing.
Anything?
I was approached last week about concerns about the water quality, and a lot of rust in the water. Was asked if we would discuss it.
Do you know what area?
Over in our neighborhood, Poplar.
Discolored water?
Yes.
We had it in Ward 2. as well, but I didn't have anybody reach out.
Does anyone ever suggest to have them contact the city immediately so that the city could come out as it's happening?
Yeah, we need to know about it and we don't. So.
I mean, because if it was reported last week,
Mhm.
if they would have called the city, then they could have had testing done instead of waiting for you to come to the council to do it. I just wonder if.
Thank you. That if a resident asks you about that, have them call City Hall.
Okay.
When it happens, I mean, and sometimes you have to run cold water for 5 minutes and it disappears entirely.
Mhm.
That's a different situation than 30 minutes running cold water and then it does not disappear.
Feel like my neighbor burning tires and I wait to come to the council instead of calling the police and say, hey, my neighbor's burning tires. You know, just as it's happening, it needs to be reported. Sorry, it's a job hazard. That's what I tell people all day long. Tell me when it happens.
Well, it's like getting on Facebook and making a big deal about it.
Right.
And nothing could be done there.
But people are more apt to tell somebody who can't directly fix the problem because they want to be heard.
Right.
Instead of solving the problem.
Yep.
It's just my experience working with people. Sorry, I said I had nothing tonight, apparently.
Teachers are like that.
Yeah.
It's Monday.
I get paid to, now I got.
You're doing fine. But for myself, I really don't have anything to speak to tonight. I noticed we were running the street sweeper the other day after the rain, which that's part of it. But I have a real persistent problem with the drains in my area down. I'm sure you all do. You know, we're still dealing with last fall's leaves and trash, and they plug the corner drains and water backs up and makes a big puddle, you know, and everybody drives through it and says, well, somebody ought to come and clean that out. Well, my feeling is, because I lived, the homeowner, if that's on your corner, just take a shovel or a rake or something, go out there and rake that stuff away and let the water drain. You know, the city guys can't look at every drop on every street in Monticello. We just can't do that. So try and prevent that and clean it up as best you can, because it is a problem. It does make, you know, big backups some places, but help it out if you can and encourage, as I tried to. I don't get a lot of complaints from my people, thank Kevin, but encourage the people in your wards to contact City Hall about those problems. And it's not that they're ignored, it's just that many times you don't get immediate results. It's not something you can call at 8 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock somebody's out there doing it. If they can, they will, but many times they can't. It takes a couple days or 3 days or whatever. So in the same way, I know I'm not involved with anybody up on the square, but if you are and you're involved with a business person up there, please let them know that our facial rehabilitation program is a big deal and they're working on it. The people downtown are working on it. But to do that, you got to park a lugger someplace. You got to park construction equipment someplace, and it's not done in a day. It's many times a couple weeks or more, you know, replacing windows and tuck pointing a building. And that's not something that happens overnight. So encourage them to give us a little bit of an opportunity to address those things. And they're not ignored. I'm really sure they're not. So please encourage your people to give us just a little bit of space. Okay. Anything else from any other alderman? John, it's your turn.
Oh, hi.
Skipping. Oh, it's Rob's turn. It does say police.
Talked enough.
Please talk.
Yeah, it was a long night.
Chief?
Really, the only thing we have here on the 27th, we have a full-scale exercise involving BMET School and Monticello Christian relocation. Once we get closer, we'll hit the communication out, Facebook, everything else, just so people aren't freaked out on that Wednesday that we're doing this exercise.
It is a big project, and I wish you a lot of luck. All right, John, it's your turn now.
All right, thank you. We ran 53 calls last month, staying pretty busy. We had some good training last month. We had to, what's required of the fire department in the city of Monticello is sexual harassment, Alzheimer's, and bloodborne pathogens. We had that training all the first week of February. We also did elevator rescue training. Doug Weiner, who works for the county, took us over, and he's on our fire department, took us over to the courthouse and showed us the workings of an elevator. So if anybody gets stuck in an elevator somewhere in town, we have a pretty good idea how to get them out. So we also, then the second week, we went over to AHW and got a tour of their place. And if you've ever been through AHW, it's a pretty big place and got a lot of equipment there. So if there's ever any type of accident there, we're pretty familiar with those buildings. The last week of training, the third week, we had Carl come out and they did a presentation on legal matters, which is our legal obligation as EMS, our responsibility. When we go into a scene, any type of, DNRs, things like that, we kind of touched on all that stuff, what our responsibility is, what we can and cannot do in some of these situations. So it was all very good training. Unfortunately, this month we had 2 firefighters resign, Liam Burke and Amanda Weiss. They are going back to school to get their masters and felt they didn't have the time to commit to the fire department. So if you know any people in your districts that would like to be on the fire department, we sure could use the help. And as Rob mentioned, we've had 2 meetings already in February about the emergency preparation for the event that's going to happen on the 27th. We also have 2 more meetings this month, prepare for that. So it will be a big to do, but it's going to be worth it. We're going to do a reunification, of course, of BMED schools, but it will translate to all the schools in Piatt County. So we're all going to get good training on how to do that. It'll be really, we're looking forward to it. So that's all I had. If anybody has any questions, happy.
Questions for the chief? No. Seeing none. Terry?
I do have a couple of things. I apologize for the shock.
It was a little panic attack.
But after the last council meeting, I did review the documents that Caitlin McLean and Jessica Evans provided the council in regards to glioblastoma. Reading all those documents, as the presenters indicated, the cause of cancer has not been identified. Some of the review was occupational exposures to pesticides has been shown to increase a person's risk of type of tumor. And from the National Institutes of Health article she provided, it did say increased exposure to nitrate contaminated drinking water can cause health effects, including various cancers. So obviously, when you talk about nitrate contaminated drinking water, that caught my eye real quick. The pesticides, kind of out of my control, but definitely the drinking water caught my eye. So I asked Scott Bailey, the water treatment plant operator, to provide me with test results of nitrate and nitrite in our drinking water. And if you remember, that council meeting was on March 11th. And different samples have to be taken at different times of the year. Some are every day, some are once a year. So if you guys want all the information about how that plant runs, I can have Scott Bailey come in here, because I'm not about to try to tell you all that. The test results, the samples were actually taken March 5th, before the March 11th council meeting. And the test results were received back March 8th. Nitrate, the maximum allowed contaminant is 10 milligrams per liter. Ours is 0.05 milligrams per liter. That's a long way from 10 milligrams per liter. The nitrite, the maximum allowed contaminant level is 1 milligram per liter. Ours was less than 0.02. So I had a very big sigh of relief when Scott presented me these numbers late last week. So the drinking water appears that's probably not one of these causes here. And so that's that. Second, real quick, I know the mayor forwarded the email that I think everybody got as far as the parking lot situation at the corner of Livingston and Market, behind Subway and the brown bag. A lot of things are going on. Wendell kind of indicated there's a lot going on with the building improvement grants. There's construction happening. This is always, the dumpsters in that parking lot have been an issue for decades. And I'm not exaggerating, for decades. The dumpsters used to be on the far east side, very southeast corner of that parking lot. There's some new owners in that whole block, new tenants. So they've wanted and asked for some changes to occur. And staff has been working diligently on trying to find the best location and best system for garbage. Here we go again with waste hauling. And one of the options that our attorney has advised that might actually be the best is, so one of the issues is this owner has GFL and that owner has nights and this owner does whatever, and it's just a convoluted mess. Is if we were to do some sort of a trash co-op where the city engages with a waste hauler and we build an enclosure, it's a real eyesore and garbage, falls out. And so to create an enclosure, build an enclosure, have two roll dumpsters on the casters, and have 2 4-yard dumpsters picked up twice a week instead of, one is once a week and one's a 6-yard and one's a 2-yard. People are using the dumpsters illegally. That always happens in every dumpster around town. So again, staff has been working diligently on trying to get a schedule, if you will, for a waste hauler to do this. And we've spoken directly to GFL. That's who is servicing some. We've reached out to that entire block, tenants, business owners, or landlords and business owners, and ran this idea by them. They are receptive to this idea. There's actually somebody kind of a block south of Washington Street there that is interested in relocating their garbage totes that they have on the side of their building and would be interested in maybe improving that look of their building. So staff's been working diligently on that with our city attorney. There's 24-hour parking that's now being blocked by the dumpsters. We have plans to redo, repave, rehabilitate that parking lot next year. The only ADA compliant space is in the southwest corner of that parking lot where you can get to the alley. That's the only space that has an at grade level, as level as the alley can be. Location, that's it. So the dumpsters can't go there. There are issues with the dumpsters in their previous locations. So I think we've got some resolution to have these dumpsters emptied more frequently. And I think it's going to actually save the landlord and business owner in the long haul. So next council meeting, I think Jim Grabarczyk and Callie Jo McFarland will probably have some actionable item. I think it's an ordinance to actually create that garbage co-op. So that's all I have tonight.
Questions,
Busy.
comments
Busy.
for the good of the cause? Hearing nothing, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thanks, Bill.
Oh.